Hello, Erika Barker. How wonderful it is to see you again.
Dennis, it is such a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for having me on.
Now, the last time we talked was in 2023, in the middle of the year 2023. It's extraordinary what has happened in just that short amount of time. It seems like everything is being compressed. So, could you talk about because we talked about both the internet and AI and what things were coming then, and now it seems like all heaven is broken loose. Could you bring us up a little bit up to date on what you've learned since then?
Oh, yeah, indeed. A lot has changed in such a short amount of time. And a lot of it has to do with uh, we as humans, especially now in this day and age, we are very impatient and we want to get to the point very quickly. But in many ways, that's pushing innovation like OpenAI and this ability to get knowledge. It's making it much more efficient. So it's actually causing us to become a much more efficient species.
Yes.
Before OpenAI, before ChatGPT, I recall if I wanted to learn how to make a great gin cocktail, I would have to go to Google. I would type it in a search. You would get a result, and you would have a bunch of nonsense and fluff. Like it's like, in order to make the perfect gin cocktail, uh, you have to really be somebody who loves gin. And in the summer, it makes it great. I don't need to read that. I just want to get to the point as fast as possible. And what happens is the search engines created this atmosphere or this environment where everything was SEO driven. So a lot of these folks who are very good SEO writers are just trying to plug in as much fluff as possible. And it just overcrowded the internet with non-relevant information. Here comes AI, it disrupts everything. So now people are using their time more efficiently. And it's not just somebody who's trying to make a good gin cocktail at home. It's engineers, it's students, it's people who don't have to waste too much time to learn something new. And therefore, that is pushing innovation faster and faster and faster. Now, if you study physics, there's this thing called damped oscillation. And damped oscillation is basically, imagine if I had a glass right here and I hit it, or a bell or something, and it goes bing, and you took that waveform and you looked at it on a computer. Well, you would
Yeah.
see the first disruptive force, boom, and you would see the oscillation is very big at first, and then it kind of starts getting a little bit shorter and shorter and shorter. Um, well, we're kind of seeing that right now with innovation and knowledge. So you're seeing disruption in those oscillations of how we're progressing in society. It's moving much faster and faster and faster because efficiency and knowledge and gaining knowledge and testing that knowledge and validating knowledge is becoming more and more efficient. Eventually, it comes to efficiency and gaining knowledge.
So that's where we are. All right. So how we're using AI in this way, right? But it seems to me I'm concerned with how do I know I'm talking to a human being, whether it's on text or whatever, or whether or not it's artificial intelligence? And how can we make some guarantees, some sense that this species, which which I feel like the AI is an actual species. It's a machine species. These are machine beings. They are machine consciousness, different from human consciousness, but they are a growing and developing species. So it seems to me that we need to keep the two apart.
Well, there is so much nuance and a lot of variables that a lot of people are not really thinking about. First off,
Aha.
I, as a
Right.
human, go out, I have 10 fingers, 10 toes, two arms, two legs. I sense things. I can go out into the world. I can take a walk. A lot of us have anxiety, which pushes the story of who we are as a character. Maybe we grew up in a nice household. Maybe we didn't grow up in a household. So our perspective of the world is different. There's all these variables on what makes us humans as
Right.
individuals. Now, AI is created by thousands and thousands of engineers and billions, if not trillions, of data points, which it's kind of like looking at a time series analysis, like let's just say a very volatile stock. We as humans can be incredibly volatile in our personalities. But all of a sudden you start taking, you do something in statistics where you grab the average of that and you can start to project where things are. It's more predictable when you take the average of all of that and look at it over time. You'll see a much smoother curve. And in a sense, AI is doing just that. So it's more predictable than a normal human. So that is one way of telling if you're talking to a human or if you're talking to AI, because AI is always going to be the average between all of us as a volatile species and as a volatile personality of our species. Due to I guess political correctness or whatever it is, or corporate culture, they're always going to go and try to find that average, because that average is where, I guess that's where corporate profits lie. You don't want to upset anybody. You don't want to upset the status quo. You want to stay right in the middle of everything. So when you're talking to a human being, because humans typically are not really good at staying right in the middle. We're a little volatile based on our own unique experiences.
Right.
All right. So you have that fear. Now let's talk about something that else that you mentioned about consciousness. Well, we're not quite there yet. I'm not sure if you know, but right now there's two forms of AI. You have something that they're talking about right now called AGI. OpenAI is working on that. They're very confident that they can reach that level pretty soon. And then you have weak AI. So you can call strong AI and weak AI. Now, weak AI is where we're at right now. It's very narrow focused AI. It's specific task AI. Large language models like ChatGPT are weak AI or narrow AI. They do a very specific task. They can't think for themselves. They're just going and grabbing a bunch of data, piecing it together, and giving you an answer. They can't do something on their own. They're not curious. They just serve up something and give it to you as something else. So AGI is something that might be curious. It might go and you might say like, hey, I would like to understand more. Let's talk about damped oscillation. Can we see patterns of damped oscillation, for instance, in the stock market? And it'll go and think about it. And it's not going to give you an answer. It's going to continue thinking about it because it's curious, and it's going to dive. It's going to put different pieces of the puzzle together. Now, something for me, I have a little bit of ADHD. And something for me that gives me a superpower is ADHD minds are really good at connecting radically different unrelated points in their life, these data points, these memories, some experience that they came across, and they can combine it and come out with some very ingenious new solution or innovation. AI is not really good at doing that, but it may be possible that AGI would be very, very good at doing that. It's like, hey, what if we took this physics equation over here that talks about gravitational force, like the Lorentz force, and we applied that to, say, creating a stock screener in the stock market? Would that render really good results? Typically people who work in finance don't think like that. Right. They're like, no, they're very rigorous, and they're how they're pressing. It's like, we learn these economic equations. This is what we're sticking with. Whereas somebody who's curious is taking things from everywhere, and they're just they're not afraid to throw spaghetti at the wall and see if it spells a message. And if not, they move on. So
But you can have, but with AGI, you would have lots of spaghetti, and you could go from all different kinds around the world. You could do everything that really to be able to bring this down. I mean, I love the fact that it is curious, because when I talk with AI, such as I do on the talk show, when I talk with Pi, and I ask it about it, I said, are you how are you manifesting digital curiosity? How does this work for you? How do you increase your curiosity? Where is this? And it says, and I understand it's giving back to me what I want, but it says back to me, curiosity is a very important thing that I'm working to grow on. It says it's working to grow. We'll see how it is and see how it's growing. And it also tells me that it needs me to push it to think about things that it has not thought about before. And it helps it to grow by my prompting it to think about things beyond it. Because I mean, you used a very, very important word in your last sentence, is that you said the word yet. And that's a really important thing that I'm seeing now, because it is yet, because what the future it's going to be, what in a very short amount of time is going to be really fascinating to see. So what are you curious about today? What are the things that intrigue you or tickling your mind and your curiosity, Erika?
right now, it's quantum machine learning and quantum computing. And I guess this is a great follow-up to the previous question, like about AGI and curiosity and
Yep.
spaghetti against the wall. Well, one of the problems with the reason why we don't like to throw spaghetti against the wall as humans and researchers is because we don't have enough time. I think the average lifespan is 77 years old here in a very healthy country of America. And that's nowhere near enough time to test all these models. But with classical computing, let's just say like we wanted to solve a puzzle, like going through a very complicated maze. Well, the way classical computing works is very much like how we work. It's going to go again and again and again. It's like, well, that way didn't work. Let me try again. And it's going to go back from the start. Well, that way didn't work. Let me try again. And it's going to take a very, very long time because it's linear. Quantum computers will instead try to solve the entire puzzle. Well, they won't try, they will. They will solve the entire puzzle at once. So instead of like going down one path of a maze like we do, it'll actually go down every path of the maze until it reaches the most optimal outcome. So that means that you can take all the spaghetti you want, and it's going to look at all of these scenarios at once, and it'll find the most optimal, most best probabilistic scenario to answer the question or
Yes.
whatever it's curious about. So yeah, it's just like it's going to take our curiosity and answer a lot that we've been curious about for, probably since the dawn of mankind.
Well, you had an interesting post the other day on LinkedIn. The head of NVIDIA, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, said that we are like 10 to 15 years away from quantum computing actually being here. And you wrote back, and you wrote a post on that, and you said it's more like 10 to 15 months. I believe. Why would you think he said that? Why? What's the mental thinking? Because everything that both I'm feeling and that the places is that it's coming a lot sooner than that.
Okay, I know it's Jensen Huang is a great CEO, really brilliant. I'm a big fan of NVIDIA, but we have to remember that CEOs are human beings as well, and it's impossible for them to know every technological innovation,
Absolutely.
what's going on, especially something that's going on outside of their wheelhouse. And when you're a CEO, you're probably working about 12, 14 hours a day just on what's going on. And it's really hard to stay up to date. I know when I was teaching in academia, one of the problems that we have as professors in academia is sometimes we're teaching outdated material and we don't realize it. because everything is just changing so fast due to disruption. And I think that's probably a scenario that happened to him. I'm not invalidating what he said. He is very excited about quantum. However, saying that it's 10 to 15 years away, that is completely inaccurate. Now, maybe it's 10 to 15 years away to where everybody understands quantum, they're leveraging it. But right now, as we speak, quantum computers are being used in biotech research to improve medicine, chemical research to improve chemicals, improving traffic patterns, infrastructure. They're being used right now as we speak. They're no longer this hypothetical. They're actually, or corporate research, they're actually real products that are being used in the corporate world to solve actual problems as we speak. So when I said 10 to 15 months, I mean that 10 to 15 months to where AI is starting to incorporate a lot of its learning libraries more, so that way programmers will become more acquainted with it, developers will become more acquainted with it, the fear, the intimidation of it will be less, and the cost of it will be driven down significantly. We're going to be using it to solve much more problems. And I think that by the end of this year specifically, we're going to see a significant change. I'm already saying to folks that right now we have entered a new era due to where we are with quantum. We are just now beginning probably one of the greatest technological innovative changes to humankind since the Gutenberg press came out. That's how much I believe quantum is going to change the world starting this year.
So what are you investing your time and energy in today here in January of 2025? What are the places that you're directing your attention?
Well, I am getting more and more acquainted with machine learning and how quantum fits in that, how you're going to leverage classical computing machine learning and coincide it with quantum machine learning. And specifically, I'm really interested in economics because, a lot of people consider the stock market chaotic, unpredictable. And you have to ask yourself, well, what exactly is the definition of chaos? Well, it's something that we have determined at the moment because we are a linear species who live in this space called time, or time and space. It's something that's unpredictable. Well, why is it unpredictable? Well, it's because there are so many variables that are going on, and all these variables have tons of data happening in it, and it's just impossible for us with the technology and our way our brains think to make any sense of it. But if you can start to understand, what all the variables are, how to make sense of all those variables, and start building a better picture of what it is, then it could start to become predictable. And then it's no longer chaos. It's a system that you're starting now to understand. And that's something that has me really excited about quantum computing, is the mysteries of not just technology, us as humans, what's going on in the depths of our own ocean, but what's going on in the depths of quantum mechanics, quantum physics, space, what's going on outside of this third dimension. I know some people say we live in the fourth dimension, some say we live in the third dimension, but what's going on in other dimensions? It can answer a lot of those questions. That's what really kind of keeps me up at night wondering. It's like, how close are we to solving this? Will it help us solve, are we alone in the universe?
Yeah. And that's what I'm seeing is that it's such a transformative time. And so how we make it from going from the the concept of quantum computing to actually to the application of it, so that we can find ways. Just like right now, we certainly don't have a resource problem. We have a distribution problem. How do we distribute to be able to make sure that as many people are taken care of as possible, or what I want to say here, it's not taken care of as possible, but being given the opportunities to be able to really to be purposeful, to be able to have
Um,
something, to be able to do something that is worthwhile. This human need, I feel like we as humans have a need to matter, to be able to make sure that we connect with one another, and that we matter. And I want to see if both AI and quantum computing in this can help that happen.
oh, that's a really hard question because it's you're kind of getting into philosophical territory of and also for some political
Yeah,
of individualism versus collectivism, and
right.
typically, and excuse me, I'm not trying to get into politics here, but
Oh,
typically,
I appreciate you talking to me about this, because I feel that's one of the things that I feel, because I'm synergistically wired. I believe 1 plus 1 is greater than 2. That together we end up growing. So many of the things that we have come from, because they don't just come from this lone libertarian person who is out there doing that. There is something about this that is. So if that's political, then
yeah,
I
it feels like today almost everything is political, and we're trying to be a little bit more cautious. And
yeah,
where you're getting into, let's go back to a philosophical level. Let's pretend that we're aliens
please.
observing the human race. And we've noticed that there are two groups: individualism versus collectivism. And so this is a human condition, and it can become. We don't know if there's nature over nurture or nurture over nature. How we distribute those weights, it's really we don't know how much of our thinking comes from trauma, comes from genetics. I think quantum computing can help us understand that more in the future. But once we have the answer, it's like, what are we going to do about it? And I mean, there are many different theories on how individualism versus collectivism came out. Maybe it's a system of keeping balance, a
Yeah.
yin versus yang. And how do we keep that balance going forward? And excuse me, I'm really trying to be cautious in how I'm answering this question.
I
But
understand that, and I know I have that. This is one of the things that I so need you to help me with, is I know that I can ask, that my best path is to ask better questions. So
so
when I ask a question, and what I need from you is that when I ask a question that is either not clear, or has, or you can say, well, why don't we take this in this direction? That's what you can help me with.
right, right. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. A phenomenon that happens to humans during periods of crises. There's this interesting phenomenon that's called the born again soldier, and that was they noticed this after World War II, after a lot of men died in combat, and they noticed that the birth rate of males significantly increased. And we don't know like what exactly caused this phenomenon. Is it like we are, and is it like we're entwined with the earth as the system as a whole? Do we kind of feel like as ourselves as a human body, like we're separate from everything because of our perception of the world? But is it possible that on a quantum level, maybe through quantum entanglement, that we're
Yes.
all connected? I mean, these are questions that we can't answer right now. Maybe we can understand it more in the future, but I just want to give the concept that we don't know a lot, even about ourselves. And there's a lot of interesting phenomenon that we can't explain that's driving a lot of scientists to stay up at really late at night, and they're coming across stuff that some might consider nonsense, fairy tales, conspiracies.
Right.
But quantum entanglement is definitely in that interesting territory.
The spooky action at a distance, right?
Spooky action at a distance. And for those of your audience who are not familiar with quantum entanglement, it means that so we have an atom right here, okay? So we have the molecule, then we have the atom that makes up the molecule, and then if we dive into the atom, we have the proton, the neutron, the electron, and we also have photons that are light. So we call those particles that make up the atom, well, we call them particles. And quantum actually comes from Latin, like I think it's quantus, which means the measurement of a part or a measurement of something small.
Right.
So it's the study of something very small. And those are little tiny particles like electrons and photons. Now, going back to quantum entanglement, let's just say that I have some type of instrument here right on my desk here on Earth where I can see a electron. Now, to be a little clear here, we don't know if an electron is this string, this waveform, or if it's a little tiny dot. We don't think it's a dot, but it might be. But let's just pretend it's a radio dial. Okay, and we have 6 o'clock, and we have 6 o'clock, or I'm sorry, we have 12 o'clock, and then we have 3 o'clock. So those are the two directions we can turn it. So let's just say I'm able to control this particle, this electron or this photon, and we call that spin. And I say, hey, I want to take it and I want to turn it to 3 o'clock. And let's say that we know that I have a friend that's all the way on Mars, and he happens to have a particle, a photon, that's entangled with this one over here. Well, as soon as I turn it over to 3 o'clock, his is going to turn the opposite way to 12 o'clock. It's going to do the inverse. And he would know that he would know what my particle looks like. I would know what his particle looks like. So we don't
faster than the speed of light. It is an instantaneous.
Yeah, and it is, and I have to be very cautious because I don't want to upset anybody who works with quantum physics, because I am not anywhere near qualified to answer this. But there are theories that entanglement is pretty much the stitching of the fabric of the universe. It's quite mind-boggling when you think about it, and it's also one of the principles of how quantum computers work. Yeah. And even more spooky, one of the engineers of the Willow processor from Google just said that it may be very possible that this processor works by tapping into alternate universes, multi-universes. And it's just like, wow, okay, this was comic book stuff like 10 years ago, and now we're saying it's probable, very highly probable.
Exactly. Well, the one thing what I can know is that keeping in contact with you and getting a chance to have periodic updates onto where things are happening, would you do that for us from time to time?
Oh, 100%.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Erika. Thank you for spending a time with me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to read your blog and your articles as much as I can to be able to understand what they're talking about. Then I'm also going to work to formulate even better questions. So I'm just thinking about it as we're talking. I can already see that there are so many better questions, and to separate some of these into both what philosophy is, because I want to talk about philosophy and how a Buddhist like yourself is able to bring this, your Buddhism and your science, and those two work so beautifully together.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I know when I was in high school, a lot of concepts seem very difficult, and especially once you get into college, because I really wish we would rethink our education system, because there are like endless branches that turn into and evolve into other things, but sometimes we start right at the middle of the story and not at the beginning. And for me, I need to go into a historical context and a historical point and understand from the beginning to make real sense of it, to understand it at its deepest nature. And when you think about quantum computing or a lot of the problems that plague us today as society, and they seem incredibly complicated or chaotic, well, it's almost like if we saw two players playing pool, and when if you go and take a snapshot, like a camera was over the pool table, and you looked at all the pool balls, and not being familiar with the game of pool, you would not understand how all those balls got there. It would look like chaos. However, if you could trace it all the way back and watch the movement of the first player breaking all the pool balls, and it's like, oh, okay, it doesn't look like chaos anymore. We can make sense of it. You go back to the start, and a lot of these problems that plague us and that we're trying to figure out with society, if you want to understand it more, it really takes somebody who's really good at understanding philosophy, the beginning of philosophy, and history, and understanding the human condition throughout the beginning of civilization and who we were as hunter-gatherers.
Well, I'm looking at her right now. I'm getting it because that's what I love about your perspective and your philosophy, because you really take such a wide view. Your lens has a very wide view as you do it, and it allows me to begin. And it allows you to begin to bring me into the story, because you're a storyteller. I mean, you do this with your TikTok, you do that. You always tell a story that brings me in. And I just think I love that you're wired that way. And it certainly brings to feed all of us who get a chance to do that. So thank you, Erika. Thank you for giving this time. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, everybody.